everyone, author DL Tillery here, the Mistress of Horror, and welcome back to my channel. Before we get started, but you press that subscribe button, give this video a like, and ring that bell so you know when I'm uploading new videos. This is one of my offbeat type of videos where I talk about my author-writer journey type of thing. This is not my usual shows that I have scheduled for my channel or my live stream that will be starting at the end of this month. That being said, I did want to share something that happened to me a couple months ago, and I was contacted by a traditional publishing house. Now, as you know, I'm a self-published author. If you don't know, the reason why I chose self-publishing isn't because I felt that I wouldn't be able to cut it in trade publishing. No. I'm too confident for that. Now, I chose self-publishing because it fit me more as a person and a writer. I like to have control of my projects. That's the main reason why I don't do traditional publishing. That being said, I'm not against traditional publishing, but I also figure in today's world, it is not a requirement in order to be an author. And it is not. Hence, I'm already an author. Nonetheless, I was contacted by a traditional publishing house by the name of Raven Tail Publishing. They are a print of DS Publishing. This is their horror print that contacted me. Now, I was intrigued because they contacted me themselves, which, as you know, doesn't happen too often for self-published authors. Most of the time, you're the one doing the submitting, you're the one finding the traditional publishing house, blah, blah, blah. You know the gist of that. So I had never queried or anything of the sort because, again, I don't have to do those things because I am a self-published author. There are many things that we do have to do, but to query to someone is not one of those. I will say it was an interesting little short journey, and I was interested in just mostly that fact of giving it a try and just seeing what it was like. Needless to say, it did not go all the way through. Either it was going to be from them not accepting the submission I gave, or it was going to probably be from me saying no once I read the contract. Now, I'm not saying the contract wouldn't have been suitable or to my liking, but I didn't necessarily expect it to be because I don't really, again, I didn't ever plan to become traditionally published because it's not a requirement. You don't have to do that. But I was contacted. We went through an actual meeting. We had a meeting because I wanted to do a virtual meeting with them. So the person I spoke with, plus the person who runs kind of like that end of the company, we were in the meeting and we talked about, they wanted me to submit something. They had found me through my author website, which is cool. This is also something you definitely want to have, a author website, because people find you that way. Having a Facebook page isn't the only thing you should do. It is something you should have as well, but definitely having your own author website is a must in my book for being an author. Only thing I had out when they first contacted me was The Room Within, which is my short horror tale. They checked that out. They liked it. They wanted me to submit something. So I did. I actually ended up they asked me right then, do you have anything to submit? And I said, I have plenty of projects on the back burner that I wasn't working on because of Cagliostro, and it's my debut novel. And no, I was definitely not going to submit Cagliostro to any traditional publishing house because that's my creative project that I don't want anyone else touching at all, as far as like trying to make changes to the story. We continued on. We had the meeting. Then I decided to go ahead and submit. I took about 2-3 weeks before I submitted something because the thing I decided to submit was actually one of my short horror story collections, but I wasn't submitting the actual collection. I decided to take that project and turn it into full-fledged horror novels in a series. And it was a type of series that was more like think Tales from the Crypt type of setting where they're connected but not connected. And so I had a character that's in my world, my mythos, that fit this, that I was already a plan to do. And then I decided to submit the first 3 chapters of that first book in that series, a 5-book series. They preferred series. They were looking for series. That's the only stipulation they really gave. They didn't say what type of horror they were looking for, though, in my opinion. If you are a niche publishing house, as far as a specific genre, I should say, publishing house, then you should possibly say what kind of horror you're looking for. You shouldn't just say horror unless you really are trying to look for a variety of horror. Do I think they were actually looking for a different, complete variety of horror? Maybe, maybe not. I have no way of knowing that. But what I submitted is a cosmic horror type of series. And again, I said it's more like it's connected. The main character of the story really is the overseer. And each individual book has a new lead or characters in each book. But it all comes to a head and is connected. So this is what I submitted. The title of the series, which you can know because I'm going to release it myself, of course, Nana's Children. And the first book in the series is When the Night Cries. And it's the first book in the series is a werewolf tale. And like I said, it's cosmic horror, though. So that's the first 3 chapters I submitted to them. Plus, they had to have a synopsis of each book in the series because it's a series synopsis. So I sent the series synopsis that I put together. Actually, my good writer, author friend, Aphrodite Lee, assisted me on helping getting those together in order to, because there really isn't many videos on writing a series synopsis, an actual series synopsis. So I had to write my first series synopsis, which was interesting, and I'm glad I learned to do it. So I put the overlay of the series synopsis, and then I did a synopsis for each individual novel. So that gives you the beginning, kind of like the somewhat breakdown story, and then the ending, or what the ending would be for most of them. So technically they could tell which each book was going to be about, and it was 5 of them. And I spent the time and I put the synopsis together. And then I had the query letter. I did a query letter, right, guys? So I did a query letter and I had the first 3 chapters. I did a light edit on it, make sure there was no misspellings and all that jazz and everything. And I submitted it. So after about, the woman who I was in contact with, because it was kind of like direct, because it wasn't like I was going through the website, because I had a person to contact. So I sent it to her. She did email me back and said that she would, thanks for submitting it, and she would, take 2 to 3 weeks. It took about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And then she messaged me back and said, well, they're not going to take the story, or I should say the series at this, because it is a series. They think they want to go in a different direction, the usual jargon. They want to go in a different direction, and if I wanted to submit something else, I could, of course, and that good luck with the whatever, such and such, the usual type of letter. I think it was pretty basic, except for like the part about maybe you want to submit something else if you have something else, blah blah blah. They want to go a different direction and things like that. So it seems really like kind of like just the usual kind of rejection type of thing. But I was like, I didn't really feel anything about it. That's the thing. So, because I wasn't really expecting anything of it. I don't even know if I would have said yes if they wanted to do the series, because it really would have depended on what the contract would have said. And I was going to have the Writers Guild lawyers go over the contract anyway, of course, because I'm aware that you should definitely have a lawyer go over any contract that's going to be like that to make sure you're not getting stiffed. I wasn't sure that I would have done it, simply because it would have had to be to my liking, and I don't know if anyone would have given me what I wanted to my liking. That being said, I would have had to have complete controlling rights of my books, because you never know if a publishing house is going to go out mid you coming out, or when your books are going to come out, and then would you like the book covers? I really don't think I necessarily would have, because of just seeing like the different covers that I saw from the author, from the cover artist that they have. I don't know that I would have liked the covers that would have been created for it, and I had an idea for the covers already that would have made it fit for the series. So you don't get all those things. Though they said that they okay the cover with you, blah blah blah, but that don't mean that they would listen to all your input on that either. So it was an interesting little journey of just seeing how the traditional could be. They didn't offer an advance anyway, because that's one of the things I asked in the meeting. I wasn't impressed with that, because if they don't offer an advance, then what am I doing with you? I know a lot of the smaller prints or traditional published houses don't always offer advances these days, and they go right to the royalty share. But it's like, I see a lot of the books are on Amazon, and that's it. So also wasn't impressed with that, because I could do that myself. I'm not impressed with, like, I needed something to give me incentive to even allow any of my books to be traditionally published. So it's kind of like, I'm not impressed with saying, oh, I've been traditionally published and now blah, blah, blah. I'm not impressed with that. So I would have had something in that contract for me to really do that, because that means I'm giving some control of my story and my creative project to someone else. And I'm not a very trusting person to begin with. So me giving you any kind of control over anything that I created, it would have had to been pretty good of a contract for me to do that. And I really necessarily didn't think it was going to be. So I'm sure it's probably for the best. And I think the good thing that came out of this is that it pushed me real quick to decide to make that series into a full novel size book series. So it was going to be short stories, and I tried to turn each one of them into, it came up with some other stuff that wasn't going to be. So I'm actually happy that they contacted me, because that actually pushed me to make this series that's going to be so good. Like, the series is Nana's Children is going to be so good. Like, I can't wait till I release it for everyone. And I'm now working on that one. It's going to be coming out right after Cagliostro. So know that, yes, they contacted me. It didn't really go anywhere past the querying stage, and them saying that they weren't, I guess they didn't say they weren't interested in it, which is also weird. They didn't say anything about, like, it's 5 books. I thought the weird thing was that it was 5 books and they weren't interested. I guess that I'm assuming they weren't interested in any of the 5. It was very a vague, very short email to say that, you contacted me, you had me submit a series synopsis, and it was a synopsis for each individual novel, and it's 5 of them, that they weren't interested in even trying to change anything, even in the first 3 chapters of When the Night Cries. So I was like, it's a little weird. Like, I know some people are I'm a skeptic anyway, so I'm like, okay, but why did you contact me? Really? I know you're looking for, because you're a new print, so you're looking for your new print of a bigger publisher, that you are looking for different horror writers, or authors probably just establishing themselves, because they might understand how marketing and stuff works, and you wanted people who know a little bit of something. Possibly that's probably why. I'm glad that the one of the big things that came out is that I decided what to do with this series, and it became way bigger than it was ever going to be. So I thank them for contacting me for that. So, like, if you have published with Raven Tail Publishing and you're a horror writer, let me know how it went with them. Hopefully it went well with you with them. I just wasn't impressed. I was just willing to try it, but I really wasn't impressed with, it wasn't anything was offered that I would have been impressed with. Like, no advance is automatically like, okay. But advances also don't impress me, because if you get a $5,000, a $3,000, or $10,000 advance, let's say, that's just really a loan, in my opinion, because your books have to sell that in order to get more money and royalties after that. I mean, so it's kind of like, advances are kind of not impressive either. So again, today's world, since self-publishing exists, I don't feel the need to be traditionally published. Well, you have a company behind you. Yeah, but if I'm a new author, they're not going to put a lot of advertising behind me. That's just a fact for new authors. So you're putting the advertising behind yourself. So again, why am I giving people part of my earnings that's hard enough for a writer to make just so I can say I'm traditionally published? It's a road everyone has to travel themselves. It's a road they have to choose for themselves. But like at the end of the day, self-publishing is the way I want to go because again, I have control completely of my project. I can pay an editor. I mean, granted, that's like, well, if you were traditionally published, then the company pays for your editor and your formatter and your cover artist and your this and your that. Yeah, but I can afford to pay for those things. So I'm not impressed. Like that doesn't impress me. So if I'm going to go with a traditional publishing house, right now, I can pay for my editor. If it's expensive, then I have payment plans. Um, I pay for my cover artist. I've already done that. I pay for my formatter. I have an awesome formatter. Pay for marketing, which I have to do whether I was traditionally published or not. So again, it really would have to be something in a traditional publishing contract for me to be like, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna do this. I just don't think that was going to happen no matter if they had wanted the story because I could have submitted something else or and continue to submit until they liked something. But again, I write the way I write. It could have been also the fact that most of the characters in my 5 books were male leads. Not that I'm not saying they didn't die because that's just a bit. It's horror, so a lot of death's going to happen. But a lot of people are, especially far as like trends and also how they're professional companies, so they're going to say, well, we think this will sell. So that type of instance, they could have been like, if it was something like that, they could have been like, well, we think maybe if we change this character, I'm not really the person because I'm not changing my story. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to compromise and change my story for anybody. If they don't like the story that I'm writing, then I'll put it out myself. I don't I'm never going to let anybody change what story I created and wrote. If I made it that way, it's because that's the way I want to tell it. I am not letting someone change anything about my stories. We're not talking about stuff like, oh, I need to have this going through my stages of being of an alpha reader and going through stages of beta readers and going through revisions and things like that and fixing plot holes and stuff like that. That's stuff that as a writer you already know you're gonna have to go through. I'm talking about I made a character and the character was a female and they told me I should change to a male, or the character was a male and they said I should change to the female, or they said, oh, this second lead that you have should be the real main character, or this doesn't seem to fit for the story. Maybe if you change this, I'm not going to do that. I'm never going to give in to anyone changing my story. Who wrote the story? Oh, that's right, I did. So my story will stay the same. Again, when it comes down to my covers, I'm very particular about the covers that go on my books because that is such an important thing. Because when a person purchases a book, that cover matters to the T. That cover is so important because that's one of the first things people see. It is the first thing they see. That's why they looked. So just to have someone else have control of the cover that goes on my book, I do not feel comfortable with that. So another reason why I would never go traditional. So yes, I was contacted by a traditional publishing house. No, it did not go any further with me actually deciding to become traditionally published. They did reject the story that I submitted. We don't know the real reason because they don't always give full reasons. We know how publishing houses are. But it doesn't really matter why, honestly. Because whatever the reason is, I would never be willing to change it anyway. Because that's just who I am. So people can take that however they want. Like, well, you're not willing to, they might know that. I don't care about them knowing the market. I don't care about a traditional publishing house knowing the market. I'm writing the story I want to tell. I'm going to tell it how I want to tell it. And I will put my stories out as just as professionally as any traditional publishing house, because I know the steps in which I need to take to make sure my book is the best it can be. I'm not skipping any steps. I know a lot of people think that self-publishers skip steps. We don't skip steps. We have a lot more steps that we have to physically handle because we cannot skip them. If you skip steps, you will regret it later. It doesn't, in my book, matter how long it takes you to get that story into a book and get it out. It matters what you're putting out. Tell the story you want to tell, but don't half do it. That's the thing. I already started my own publishing house, so I can publish my books under a publishing house. So I guess I'm traditionally published then. I mean, this is not the past. You hold the power. These are the facts. You hold the power. I started a publishing house and I publish my books under my publishing house. So I am traditionally published. I made that post on Twitter before. Like, this video is about a lot of things. Just like, nothing can stop you. Only you can stop you. People like, whoa, that's trying to find a way around. Find a way around. Guess what? That's the first time I even bothered querying, because someone asked me from a publishing house to query, and I was interested in giving it a try once in my life. I have no interest in doing it again, and I have no interest in ever pursuing it because it's pointless for me. I'm not saying no one else should. It's just that in today's age, why would I? Also, being a female of color in the horror industry, and that being the genre, there is very few women of color in writing horror that's in the public eye, that are making themselves known. Just being in horror tube myself, I don't see many people of color in horror, like on YouTube. We know YouTube also has racial things and stuff like that as well, because every part of life seems to. Even this publishing house, Raventail Publishing, I didn't see any people of color that were writers under their house. I'm not saying that they not taking any people of color. They contacted me, but there aren't any. One there. Some things need to change still. Like, there's plenty of things that need to change in every type of career, every type of walk of life with this racial stuff. Like, it's ridiculous. And we all deal with it here on YouTube, so. And the writing world is definitely has lots of issues with that. So yeah. No one can stop you today. In today's world, no one can stop you. You stop you. So that's my thing. That's my take. That's what happened with me being contacted by a traditional publishing house. But I also run a traditional publishing house. And my books will all be published under the Veil Publishing. So one day I will be taking submissions to publish other authors. That's not today, because you have to build. But all my books will be published under the Veil Publishing. So I guess I'm traditionally published after all. All right, that's all I have for you about that. Just my whole point is, if you are going after a traditional publishing house, keep going, keep chugging at it. If that's what you want to do, then do it. If you feel that's the only way, that is not true. There are plenty of ways. And don't let anybody try to knock you down because they said you didn't go traditional. You didn't get traditionally published, so you're not a real writer or author. Scratch that. A writer is a person who writes. An author is someone who has published works out there. No one ever said you had to be on traditional publishing house. Just so we're clear, traditional doesn't really mean anything. Let the rest of your week be magical, and I will see you later. And as I always like to tell you, stay scared.